Princess Lyari sat inside the quiet silver ship as it drifted through the dark night sky above Earth. Her heart moved fast like a racing star. She came from a world where every mating season turned into a hunt where males fought and sometimes ate. The females she believed humans were the same. She wanted to see the truth with her own eyes before she would tell her empire what she found. The ship trembled when a bright blue beam of light touched the clouds. The soft hum of the engine faded. She whispered to herself, "If humans are truly gentle, then everything we believe is wrong." Her words felt heavy inside the small cabin. She lowered the ship into a deep forest where tall trees hid her from human eyes. She wanted to watch them closely. Without being seen, when the ship landed, a small storm of leaves moved through the air. The forest smelled of wet soil and new life. She stepped outside wearing a thin cloak that could hide her alien skin. Her feet touched the cold earth for the first time. The ground felt alive beneath her boots. Every sound of the forest reached her ears. A bird sang, a night insect clicked. The wind carried the scent of water. She walked until she found a narrow path. The moonlight showed her a trail between dark trees. Each step made her think about the human males she might meet. She imagined sharp teeth and wild eyes. She imagined a chase, a fight, a cruel end. But she also felt a strange hope that maybe she would see kindness. A sudden noise broke the quiet. A branch snapped nearby. She froze and listened. The sound came again, a slow, careful step. She moved behind a wide tree and held her breath from the shadows. She saw a figure, a human male tall with a pack on his back. He held a small light that shone. Like a captured star, his eyes looked around as if searching for someone or something. He noticed the broken branch and knelt to touch it. His face showed calm focus, not hunger or rage. He looked gentle, like a healer, not a hunter. She wondered if he could sense her presence. Her heart beat louder than the forest around her. The man raised his light and slowly turned his head. His voice, soft but clear, asked, "Is someone there?" She did not understand every word, but she felt the meaning in his tone. It was not a challenge, it was a question of care. He took a small step closer, his eyes scanning the trees. Lyari stayed hidden, her mind running fast. She had a choice to stay silent or step out if she left. Now she might never know the truth about humans. If she revealed herself, she risked danger. But something in the way the man stood so calm made her feel a pull, a quiet trust. She stepped from behind the tree. The man turned the light on her and gasped, not in fear but in surprise, his eyes wide but gentle. He lowered the light and said hello. His voice warm like a soft breeze. She said nothing, but she could see he was not a predator. For a moment the forest held its breath. The man smiled, a small, careful smile. He pointed to himself and said, "Ethan." Then he pointed to her, waiting. She felt the name roll in her mind. Ethan, it sounded kind. She placed a hand on her chest and softly said, "Lyari." Ethan nodded and took a step closer. Slow and respectful. He offered a small flask of water. She accepted it. The cool drink touched her lips and eased her dry throat in that simple act. She felt something she never knew before, a welcome. The night grew quiet again, but inside her heart a storm of wonder began. She thought of her empire waiting for proof of human violence, but she had seen only peace and a strange gentle strength, and she knew her journey had just begun. The forest air stayed still as Princess Lyari held the flask Ethan had given her. She felt the cool metal and wondered why a human would share water with a stranger. When his eyes met hers, she felt a small spark of trust, yet her mind warned her that danger might hide behind soft smiles on her world. No male gave kindness without a secret reason. Ethan pointed toward a narrow path through the tall trees and spoke again, his words gentle and slow. She did not know all the sounds, but she understood his meaning. "Follow me." He waited until she nodded, then began to walk, his steps quiet like a hunter, but not in threat. She followed a short distance behind, her senses sharp for any sudden move. The moonlight dripped through the branches, making silver lines on the ground as they walked. The night grew deeper. A low mist crawled over the roots and stones. Every shadow seemed alive. Her ears caught faint movements to the left and right like hidden watchers. She thought of the Imperial warning that humans could be violent. Her heart raced with every sound. Yet Ethan walked calm, his small light sweeping over the path, his back straight and steady. After some time they reached a clearing. A small fire pit stood dark and cold beside a large fallen log. Ethan placed his pack down and began to arrange dry sticks. His motions patient. Careful, he struck a small device, and a flame leapt to life. Warm orange light pushed the darkness back. Liari felt its heat and stepped closer, her cloak catching the glow. He smiled and gestured for her to sit. She sat across from him, the crackle of the fire mixing with the quiet forest. She studied his face, lines of work and travel etched near his eyes. He took a small piece of food from his pack and offered it to her. She hesitated, then accepted the strange bread, its taste simple but good. She felt her doubts shake a little, but the sound of distant footsteps returned, faint, almost like whispers. She turned her head, quick eyes scanning the dark trees. Ethan noticed her tension. His brow tightened. He listened too. Silence stretched long. Then a branch far away snapped. Both of them looked toward the sound. Ethan rose slowly, picking up a short metal tool from his pack like a small weapon. He motioned for her to stay behind. He moved toward the trees, careful but readily. Ari stood, her senses sharp. She felt a faint pulse. In the ground, a vibration not from Ethan. Something larger moved through the forest. She thought of Imperial hunters or maybe wild earth animals. The mist thickened, hiding shapes. Her heart pounded like a drum. Sudden rustle from the left made her spin. A shadow darted between two trees, fast and silent. She felt a wave of cold fear. Ethan raised his light. The beam caught only drifting fog. No figure, just emptiness. He whispered a word she did not know, but it sounded like a warning. He stepped closer to her, his body slightly in front of hers as if to shield her. For a long moment nothing moved, only the fire cracked, and a distant owl called. The shadow seemed gone, but the strange vibration under her feet still pulsed, faint and steady. She wondered if an Imperial probe followed her to watch her report, or if some forest creature hunted them. She wanted to tell Ethan, but her words would not form. Then lowered the light and looked at her. His eyes serious, he pointed toward a large tree, nearby, its trunk wide enough to hide them. He whispered again, motioning to move. She nodded, and together they stepped into the deeper dark. The firelight faded behind them. The forest closed around them with heavy silence. They waited, hearts beating. As one, the pulse in the ground grew a little stronger, then stopped. A low sigh of wind passed through the leaves, as if the forest itself held its breath. After many long moments, only the quiet of night remained. Ethan looked at her, a question in his eyes. She could only shake her head. The mystery of the shadow lingered around them like the mist. Something watched them, or maybe something far stranger than a forest animal. Now she knew her mission was no simple study of human love. It was a path into danger and secrets she could not yet name. The night felt heavier as the mist wrapped around Princess Liari and Ethan. They stayed close behind the wide tree, listening for the faint pulse that had filled the ground. Moments before, the forest seemed to hold a secret. It would not give easily. Every sound carried a hidden warning. The owl cry, the whisper of leaves, the distant rush of a small stream. All of it sharpened the edge of her fear, then kept his light low, his hand steady near the short metal tool. His eyes moved from shadow to shadow. He leaned toward her and whispered a few slow words she caught only. Stay in quiet. His breath showed in the cool air like pale smoke. She nodded and held her cloak tighter. The cold earth beneath her feet throbbed with a memory of that strange vibration. She wondered if an Imperial scout drone had found her. If so, the Empire would know she had made contact with a human, and that might mean capture. After long, still minutes, Ethan motioned toward a narrow trail leading downhill. The path was almost hidden by tangled roots and wet leaves. She followed him, careful not to break a branch. Each step echoed inside her mind with the question of who or what had been near them. The fire behind them burned low until its glow disappeared into the fog. The trail opened to a small valley where water pooled in a quiet lake. The moon lay across it like a silver sheet. The air smelled of moss and stone. Ethan knelt at the edge and filled a small cup with water. He drank and then offered it to Her again, she accepted the cup, feeling the cold liquid steady her breath. His simple sharing of water made her heart ache in a way she could not name. On her homeworld, trust was a word without meaning. Here it felt real, but the peace broke when a sudden flash of light flickered in the distant sky. A blue streak cut across the stars for a heartbeat. She thought it was only a falling star. Then she saw the pattern of its descent, too straight, too controlled. Her stomach tightened. That was no star, that was Imperial technology, a signal or a ship. Then followed her gaze and frowned. His hand tightened on the metal tool. He whispered a question she did not understand, but his tone carried concern. She wanted to tell him the danger. Yet she had no human words. She pointed to the sky and made a sweeping motion like a ship landing. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing as if trying to read the message. A sharp metallic click sounded from across the lake. Both of them turned fast. A shape moved, near the dark trees, taller than a man and silent like smoke. The figure glowed faintly blue, then vanished behind the trunks. Liari felt the old lessons of her world return, fight or flee. But she stood frozen. Ethan pulled her gently behind a large rock, his heartbeat quick against her shoulder. The shape appeared again, closer now, its outline clearer, like a tall insect with long arms. It held something that shimmered like liquid glass. Liari knew the design, an Imperial observer drone in disguise. If it captured an image of her with Ethan, the Empire would send enforcers to erase the human witness. She breathed deep, forcing herself to stay silent, then lifted his light and shone it toward the shape. The beam revealed nothing, only branches. Swaying in the breeze, the drone had hidden again, perhaps cloaked. She sensed its sensor sweep across them, a cold ripple through the air. She clenched her hands, thinking of her mission. She had come to study human love, and now a simple meeting threatened both their lives. The drone emitted a faint hum, a sound only she might hear. It was calling for a report. She had to decide to answer or betray her empire. She looked at Ethan, his eyes steady and brave. Without knowing the danger, he still stood close, protecting her from a threat he could not name. The choice burned inside her. Stay loyal to her world, or protect the human who showed her a gentleness she had never known. The hum faded into the forest. The blue light blinked once, then disappeared. The lake grew still again, but the silence felt different, heavier. Ethan looked to her, his face asking silent questions she could not answer. She knew this night had changed everything. Her people would not stop searching, and the secret of human love rituals was no longer her only discovery. Danger followed her now, and there would be no turning back. The forest began to wake with a slow gray light as dawn crept across the sky. Princess Liari sat near the quiet lake, her eyes fixed on the fading stars. Her mind still held the echo of the blue light and the strange insect shape that had stalked them. She felt the weight of two worlds pressing against her, one that demanded silence, and one that offered unexpected kindness. Ethan stood nearby, watching the trees, his breath misting in the cool morning air. His short metal tool rested in his hand, ready for any threat. The mist thinned as birds began to call, soft and cautious. Their songs a fragile promise that night had passed, yet the air carried a tension like a string pulled tight. Liari wondered if the Imperial drone still hovered unseen above them. Her senses strained for the faint hum, but only the sound of water touching the stones reached her ears. Ethan caught her glance and gave a small nod as if to say, "We are safe." But she could not believe it. He motioned toward a rising trail that led away from the lake. The path wound between ancient trees and sloping rocks. He spoke a few quiet words. She caught only village, and mourning. She understood that he wished to guide her to where other humans lived. A part of her wanted to see this new place. Another part feared that more eyes would bring more danger. Still, she followed him, the decision feeling like a thread she could not stop pulling. The trail climbed higher until they reached a ridge where the sun spilled gold across the land below. She saw a cluster of small wooden homes, smoke curling from their chimneys. A soft hum of life drifted on the breeze. Ethan pointed to it, his eyes warm with pride. The sight of the village filled her with both wonder and dread. She imagined Imperial enforcers descending with cold precision, and she shivered beneath her cloak. They descended slowly, the smell of bread and earth grew stronger. With every step, villagers began to appear carrying baskets and tools, their faces open with simple morning smiles. They greeted Ethan with gentle voices, their eyes curious, as they noticed her beside him. She kept her hood low, hoping to hide the faint shimmer of her alien skin. Ethan spoke to them, his tone calm and friendly. They nodded, though their glances lingered on her strange, quiet presence. A sudden noise cracked through the calm like a distant thunderclap, sharp metallic ring that did not belong to this peaceful scene. Layari felt the ground tremble, a memory of the night, before she turned her gaze to the forest edge, where a shimmer of blue flickered then vanished. The villagers looked around uneasy, whispers passing between them. Ethan placed a hand lightly on her arm. His face tight with silent warning, he led her toward a wide-open square where people gathered for what looked like a celebration. Bright cloth banners fluttered above tables filled with food and small lights. Children laughed as they played near a wooden platform. Musicians tuned their instruments. Soft notes floating on the air. Layari watched in fascination. It seemed to be a ritual of joy, but her mind searched for hidden danger. Every movement of the crowd felt like a puzzle. She did not yet understand as the music began. Couples stepped into the square to dance, their steps slow and graceful. They held each other with care and laughter. The sight pierced her heart. It looked nothing like the brutal mating rituals of her world here. Love was gentle, a choice shared, not a hunt. Ethan smiled at her and offered his hand, inviting her into the circle. She hesitated. The blue shimmer from the forest flashed again just at the edge of her vision, a silent threat watching. Before she could decide, a loud crack split the air. A tree near the village edge bent as if struck by an invisible force. The music faltered. Villagers gasped. Children clung to their parents. Ethan pulled her behind a wooden stall. His eyes scanning the trees, the shimmer grew stronger. A faint outline of a tall insect shape appearing, then fading like a ghostly. Ari felt a rush of fear and resolve. She understood that the Empire would not stop until they had proof or her capture. Yet she also felt the pull of the humans around her. Their warmth, their quiet courage, the choice before her sharpened like a blade: reveal herself and endanger them, or keep running while the Empire hunted. The music slowly started again, as if the villagers refused to let fear steal their day. But the shadow in the forest remained. She knew the next move of the Imperial Watchers would decide everything, and she could no longer remain only an observer. Her mission was no longer simple study. It was a test of loyalty and a fight to protect the fragile beauty she had discovered. Evening shadows stretched long across the village square as the celebration tried to continue. Princess Layari stood close to Ethan behind the wooden stall, her heart pounding with the memory of the shimmering blue figure at the edge of the forest. The music played soft and cautious. The villagers smiled, but their eyes flicked toward the trees as if they too sensed a hidden threat. The scent of bread and smoke mixed with the tense air, and every sound carried a secret warning. Ethan whispered a few gentle words that she could not fully understand, but his calm voice steadied her. He motioned toward a small path leading to a cluster of houses on the far side of the square. She followed him carefully, her cloak brushing the dusty ground. The laughter of children floated behind them, thin and nervous like fragile glass ready to break at a single sharp note. They reached a quiet house made of rough wood and warm light. Ethan pushed the door open and gestured for her to enter the room. Smelled of herbs and old wood. A small fire burned in a stone hearth, casting slow waves of orange across the walls. He handed her a cup of water and spoke again, his eyes serious and searching. She wished she could tell him about the Empire, the drones, the danger. But her human words were too few. Suddenly a low hum vibrated through the floor, a sound she knew well. Imperial technology. The walls trembled slightly. Ethan froze his hand on the metal tool. His gaze turned to the window. A faint blue glow flickered outside, moving like a slow tide of light. Layari stepped to the window and peered through the narrow gap. She saw the outline of the insect-shaped drone hovering between the houses, its sensors sweeping in slow arcs the Empire had found. Hershey turned to Ethan and shook her head. Hoping he would understand the danger, he studied her face, then nodded a silent agreement. He moved to the hearth and pushed a heavy log to dampen the fire, dimming the room into shadow. The hum outside grew louder. A thin beam of blue light slid across the wooden door, searching the house. The villagers outside began to shout, their voices sharp with fear. Someone cried out a warning and footsteps pounded on the dirt path. A crash of wood followed as another house door swung open. Laeri felt the cold grip of her mission close around her. The Empire would destroy this peaceful place to erase any witness she had to act. Then gripped her arm lightly, guiding her toward a back door that led to a narrow alley. The night air smelled of pine and smoke. They slipped out into the darkness, moving between walls and silent gardens. The blue glow followed them like a predator, always near, never fully seen. She sensed more drones in the distance. A net drawing tight, they reached the edge of the village where a small river whispered through tall grass. Ethan pointed toward a narrow bridge of stone. He spoke a quick word, run his voice low but urgent. They crossed the bridge as the hum behind them swelled into a sharp whine. A burst of blue light sliced through the air, striking the stones just behind them. The bridge shook, dust falling like rain. Laeri turned and saw the drone hovering closer, its limbs unfolding with cold precision. She felt the instinct of her people rise within her, a memory of ancient power. She lifted her hand and focused the faint energy that lived in her blood. A soft silver spark leapt from her palm, striking the air. The drone hesitated, its sensors flickering, confused, and stared, wide-eyed, but did not retreat. He raised his metal tool, ready to defend her. Though he could not know what enemy he faced, the drone steadied itself and advanced, a harsh mechanical click echoing through the night. Another silver spark burst from her hand, brighter, stronger. The drone reeled backward, crashing into a tree with a sound like breaking ice. For a moment silence held the river and the sky, only the rushing water and their heavy breathing filled the dark. The blue glow dimmed, then vanished. The drone lay twisted among the roots, its light dying like a fading star. But Laeri knew this was not the end. The Empire would send more. They would not forgive her choice to fight. Then stepped closer. His eyes full of questions, he touched her shoulder gently, no fear, only trust. She looked back at the quiet village lights flickering in the distance. She felt the weight of what was coming. Her mission had changed from a secret study to a battle for survival, and a test of the fragile bond forming between two worlds together. They turned toward the deeper forest where the river curved like a silver path into the unknown. The night wrapped around them, heavy with suspense, and the promise of a choice that could change the fate of both their peoples. The forest stretched wide and endless as Princess Laeri and Ethan followed the silver line of the river. The night air carried a sharp chill, and every step echoed with the memory of the broken drone. The stars above shone like watchful eyes, and the moon hung low and pale. She felt the silent call of her empire far beyond the sky, a pressure in her mind that urged her to return and surrender. But the warmth of Ethan walking beside her gave her strength to move forward. Walked until the first color of dawn brushed the horizon, a soft gray light painting the leaves in silver mist. The river widened into a quiet meadow, where tall grass swayed in a gentle breeze. The ground was damp and smelled of earth and new life. Laeri paused to listen. The forest seemed calm, but she sensed a distant hum far away, and faint like a storm waiting to rise. She knew more Imperial machines would come. Ethan knelt near the water, filling a small flask, and offered it to her. She accepted, and drank the cool water, easing her dry throat. His calm presence wrapped around her like a shield. She wished she could tell him everything about the Empire, about the danger, but her human words were too small. She placed her hand on her chest and then on his, hoping he would understand the silent message of trust. A sudden flicker of blue light broke the morning sky, a streak across the clouds too precise to be a falling star. Her heart tightened. She knew it was an Imperial vessel descending. To the planet, the hum grew stronger, vibrating through the ground like a warning drum. Ethan heard it too. His eyes widened and he gripped his metal tool. Though he could not know the scale of what approached, they left the meadow and climbed a rocky hill, hoping to see what came from the sky from the top. They saw the far forest shimmer with pale blue as a sleek dark ship lowered between the trees, silent and cold. The Empire had sent more than a drone. This was an enforcer craft built to retrieve or destroy. Her mission had reached its end. She felt a mix of fear and fierce resolve. She would not let them harm Ethan or the humans who had shown her a new way of life. Ethan looked at her for answers, his brow furrowed, his breath fast. She reached for his hand and squeezed it, a silent promise. then turned her gaze to the ship. A low door opened, and 3 tall figures emerged, their shapes outlined in a ghostly light, their movements exact and merciless. Each carried a staff that pulsed with blue energy. They began to move toward the hill. Liari felt the ancient power within her, the energy of her royal blood, the strength that her empire used only in times of war. She stepped forward, lifting her arms. The air around her shimmered with a faint silver glow. Ethan stepped beside her. Though he held no power, only the quiet courage of a human heart. The enforcers paused, their eyes glowing like frozen stars. One raised a staff, sending a thin beam of blue toward them. She focused the energy inside her, and the beam split into sparks, vanishing before it reached the hill. The enforcers advanced again, the ground beneath their steps humming with force. She spoke in her own language, a clear command to stop. The sound rolled through the forest. Like distant thunder. For a moment, the figures hesitated. She felt the weight of her heritage, the authority of a princess of the empire. She called again, declaring that she would not return, and that the humans were not enemies, but a people of peace. The tallest enforcer lowered its staff. A faint vibration of confusion moved through the air. Another stepped forward but paused as a new sound joined the morning. A chorus of human voices, villagers approaching from the path, their torches flickering. Like small suns, they came with courage, though they did not know the full danger. Their presence formed a living shield around the hill. The enforcers turned their gaze to the humans, then back to her. The silver glow around her grew brighter. She felt the power of choice, not just of birth, but of heart. She raised her voice once more, promising that she would tell the Empire the truth about Earth, and that any act of violence would be her challenge to answer. For a long, tense moment, nothing moved. Then the enforcers lowered their staffs. The blue light around them dimmed. They stepped back toward the ship, and with a low, rising hum, they vanished into the trees. The ship lifted silently and faded into the pale sky, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the quiet strength of dawn. Liari lowered her arms, the silver glow fading. She turned to Ethan, who still held her hand. His eyes filled with awe, but no fear. She felt the bond between them, a bridge between worlds stronger than any command. From her empire, she knew the path ahead would not be simple. The empire would question her defiance, yet she had discovered a truth deeper than duty. Humans were not hunters of love. They were protectors of it. As the sun rose, the villagers gathered, around them offering warmth and quiet respect. Liari stood with Ethan at her side and felt the weight of a new beginning. She had come to observe and report. But instead, she had found trust and a love that crossed stars. And she knew that whatever came next, the secret she carried would change both their worlds forever.